How are you today? Are you excited? I didn't say the F word. I didn't say the F word of where we are actually recording.
Or the other F word.
Hey, just wanted to touch base. This is Kimberly and Conor Treacy over here at Big Red SEO, a married couple that are entrepreneurs that have chose the journey of doing a live video every Friday, weekly recap. This week has been like hella crazy. Would you agree?
Yep, definitely.
Like, I'm like, how are we in the middle of June? How are we at the end of the week for Friday? Yeah. I feel like it needs to be a Wednesday.
How is it Friday? I think that's the big deal.
Connor's like, I don't want it to be Wednesday because I don't want to work. He wants the weekend off. But hey, we've got some cool stuff to share with you guys in all different areas and perspectives, right? So the whole purpose and goal of this entire video series is to give you a kind of a snippet of what we do in our life just as business owners, as well as some advice that you might be able to apply to your own business, or if you're a freelancer, maybe you can take some tips and tricks. We've received a really good feedback so far of people that have been able to take little bitty aspects and apply it to their businesses, or it's stuff that they've never even considered or thought of. So it's definitely kind of cool having people like reach out that we haven't heard from in a while, and you just show up and you do it. So thanks everybody that's joined us so far. So Conor, basically to start off, I have a question.
Kim actually has.
I have a whole sheet. I'm a note person. So I have a question.
Yep.
If somebody comes to you and they're designing a website, what is the number one thing that you highly recommend for them to have on their website?
Well, the first thing is a phone number.
So that is the key hint. You would not believe how many people actually design websites that are like, I want to have calls come in, and they don't put their phone number.
Yep.
It's like, it blows our mind every single time.
It happens a lot.
It happens a lot. So what happens is they don't put the phone number, and it may be in the head, or maybe we always put it up in the header because people will read in Z or they read in the L letter, right? And a lot of times people will drop on your website because they want to get into contact. So why not give them the phone number as soon as they drop into your website? They can click and call. The caveat to that is your bounce rate might be a little high, right? Because they're going to call you and have a conversation versus scroll through your website.
From an SEO perspective, bounce rate has to do with people that go to one page and then leave your website. So the higher your bounce rate, in theory, the less effective your website was because the person didn't go to multiple pages. That's effective in an e-commerce world. It's not effective if you are a plumber, for example.
Yep.
A plumber,
or a locksmith.
Somebody goes to a plumber's website. They don't care how the pipe is put in and everything else. They just want, where's the phone number? Click the button, bring the person out and get it done.
Yep.
So from an SEO perspective or from an analytics perspective, paying attention just to the bounce rate as to what's actually happening is a very bad thing to do. It's almost as bad as paying attention to rankings.
Yeah.
What position am I in? Well, I can rank you for any position or for any particular phrase, but if it's not converting and the people are not actually making the phone call, which is why you have a phone number on your website, then it's of no use. But going a little further,
I almost snorted there for a second.
going a little further on that phone number situation. Now, we had a meeting earlier this week, and we can't call anybody out on it or anything else, but we haven't had a meeting with them in quite a while. They had staff at the place, and there's been some turnover in staff. So we were brought in just to catch up to speed with what was going on with their SEO and where things are at. And of course, we talked about the phone number, and everybody looked at each other and said, well, who answers that? Now they're spending money in AdWords. There's a click to call from the AdWords. There's landing pages. We're talking about conversion rates and optimizations. And we were talking about, they wanted to know, how do you track from an AdWords perspective, how do you track to find out how many people purchased, or are the ads being effective? And because all of their sales is handled offline, there's nothing online for their sales, they have to ask the actual question on the phone, how did you hear of us? Do you know what you typed in? Did you do an AdWords
We train
thing
all
or
of our
whatever.
clients to do that immediately.
Mhm.
Well, not immediately. You don't want it to be awkward in the
Before the
conversation. Immediately before you pick or like hang up the phone,
Yep.
you just say, hey, just kind of curious, how did you hear about us? And then we always recommend, whether it's your deal is to track in a notepad or Excel file or in your own system, but ask them specifically how they found you, and then go the next level and ask them if they remember what they typed. Believe it or not, people get excited to give that information to you because they actually went out and researched on their own. So it's almost kind of like whenever you were in school and you got a gold star when you got the right answer. They get super excited to be like, oh, I found you on da-da-da-da, you were ranked #1, and then they get super excited about that process, right? But
touching back on that phone number situation, everybody looked at each other in the room and asked, who answers our phones?
Yeah.
Now, these ads have been running, so the last big turnover that they had was about 5 months ago with staff, and they don't know who is answering the phone. They've got an AdWords campaign running. They got radio ads running. They got print ads out there that are running. Their phone numbers on everything. So the owner that was there picked up the phone, and he decided just to call and see what it was. And it went to voicemail. Yeah. So then the question is, who answers the voicemail?
As they're actually calling their own business in a meeting, and then it goes to voicemail, and they don't know how to gain access to voicemail. So without going too much deep within that example of that client, what we pulled away from that, so you made it blurry. Do the unblurry. Bear with us here. The thing to consider and think about is you do have to figure out what are your internal processes. And how do you make sure that you're actually answering the phone and answering the calls and helping the customers. Like, you have to determine what that process is, right? So a lot of times, and I think I recently did a blog article on this about success for the business, you have to be ready for your business to be successful. And what I mean by that is, if you're paying marketing or you're doing marketing yourself and you're putting your blood, sweat, and tears into it, and you have to expect that the phones are going to start ringing. So you mentally have to kind of be your future self for a bit and make sure all your processes and procedures are in place. Make sure that you're getting all the information that you need out there so people can see it. Hey, everybody, thanks so much for joining. You need to make sure that you are able to handle that additional business, because believe it or not, we've had a lot of clients come to us. We got results. They're like, we got so many results. Like, we grew so fast, we need to pause it. And then all of a sudden their service started to go downhill, right? Because then they're not able to offer enough customer service, or they're having a lot of different issues and they're not sure, hey, how do I figure this out? So always plan to be successful and build your business model around that. And unfortunately for this specific client, they kind of didn't do that. So we could feel the stress. Like, we're like, oh crap, like, you're paying us as consultants to do all this stuff, but yet the internal aspect is kind of broken.
Yeah, I wanted to slowly back out of the room. After I asked the question, I realized, maybe I shouldn't ask the question, but for marketing, you have to ask that question. So anyways.
The good news is the owner was in the room, so he knew it as well.
And he owned up to it, and he says, I have no idea. So, and that's the other side, taking ownership of situations. It's good, it's bad. In my world, everything for me is black or white. There is no in between. You're pregnant or you're not pregnant. Not kind of pregnant. Okay.
Oh my God! Of course you'd pull the pregnant card. Well, of course you would pull that. It's like, it is, and you are, or you're not.
You're dying or you're not. How about that? Is that better?
No? I call it croaking. I don't call it dying. I just say croaking. But that's cool.
But everything is black and white. Marketing in general is black and white. And your business and the success of your business is black and white. You're either working on it or you're not. So if you are, it better be growing. And if it's not, get off your ass or close your business. So there you go.
That's coaching from Conor. He's very like,
hire me for
done
coaching.
And done. He's actually my coach. He's actually my coach on certain aspects, because I get kind of lost. I get in the dreamy world. Everybody's a great person and we're all going to work together. And sometimes that's not the case. I learned the hard way. Yeah. But I get better and better every day. So, okay. So the next thing that I want to talk about is, with us being a married couple and running a business, I'm actually surprised at how many people will make the off-wall comment of, gosh, I don't know how you and your husband husband work together, like if I worked with my husband, like it would just like we would be in a constant battle and a constant fight all the time. And I don't know if it's because we got something figured out right at the beginning and then it was a matter of us just like learning each other. But here's what I can tell you how we're able to be successful. We both wear our own hats. And what that means is Conor does things for the business and I don't touch any of it. He might actually try to educate me on certain aspects, but whatever is in his court, that stays in his court and he's responsible for that. And then whatever I have on my side, I'm also responsible of. But then we have these responsibilities that we blend together, right? So like sales and marketing, we blend together because I might be knee deep into my processes and he just needs a chance to connect with somebody, so he might pick up a phone when a prospect calls, and it kind of keeps your skills sharp, if that makes sense. The same way I might take all the sales calls while he's heavy in coding, right? But I think part of the important part is a lot of times couples try to get into business and they want it to be lovey-dovey, and I'm not saying that you can't be lovey-dovey. There has to be an honor and a level of respect, but you do have to determine what hats are you going to wear and how are you going to go about it and how are you going to maintain and manage the growth of the business, right? Because if I go out and I double our income in 30 days, this guy's going to freak out because he's going to see the pipeline of coming in. He'll also see the bank and he'll be like, hey, that's super fucking cool. Like, let's go on vacation. That's usually your first thing. Let's go on vacation. And I'm like, well, no. We can't go on vacation yet. We got to produce all this work that we have coming through, right? But I think also when you work with couples, you have to like learn each other's, I default with strengths and weaknesses.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, there are certainly things that I'm better at doing than you are.
Yeah.
And there's things that you're better at than I am. For me, I hate everything there is to do with the closing of a sale.
Yeah. Asking for money,
the closing of a sale. I loathe.
He'll actually be on a call and they'll be like, okay, can I give you my credit card information? And Connor's like, yeah, like, yeah.
Let me get Kim and Kim will take it. No, in all seriousness, I mean, it's just one of those things that I don't like. So yeah. Kim is aware that I don't like it. I have a hard time bringing up that section. I mean, we can have a 20-minute phone call about all the things wrong on the website and how it is we're going to fix it. And then they say, and how much will that be? Fuck, I don't know. Let me get Kim, and then Kim will figure it out. I mean, I've got all my time documented, and then Kim will figure that out. Vice versa, when it comes into any of the analytics end of things, or it comes into some of the new stuff that's happening down Google.
Thanks for joining, guys.
Then Kim throws that to me and I get that taken care of.
Yeah.
If there's something that requires a procedural step on things, or if there's a step-by-step that things have to be done, I'm better at doing that than what Kim is.
Yes.
So I'm all about that.
I'm laughing because the first thing Conor asked me today was, so you're sending that email I don't even want to say it. It's like a confession moment. You're sending this email to this client, right? You've been working on her for 45 minutes. And I'm like, He was like, and you're tracking it in the system, right? And I'm like, And so that's not necessarily my strength. I'm getting better at it time and time again. But as soon as I like get into a project, or today, I was just kind of like, I was trying to ground down, but I was a little bit everywhere and anywhere. And then sometimes I forget, use the system, because the system is your friend, if that makes sense. But he rocks systems, right?
Yep.
And so that's where also as a husband and wife team, like, I think if you can find a way to hold each other accountable, but then not take things personal, like realize like you're working as a team together, and how can you row the boat at the same time together, if that makes sense. Because for him, like, one of the things is he can talk to a client on the phone and was like, hey, like, what do you think the estimate time is for this? He will try to get down to like the minute of the time. He'll say, oh, it'll take like 1 hour. Here's our bill rate, da 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 da. But what he doesn't take in consideration is there might be communication with the client, or he might run into a roadblock, and then if he handled the money situation, he might have to go and beg for more money and more time to be able to process the solution. And sometimes you've actually felt bad about it. But here's the deal, especially in our industry, you can't predict things going wrong. Like, I mean, you could try to have all your ducks in the row as you can, but one day it just might go crap. I mean,
a good example of that. So we do the website updates or the plugins and things like that for the different softwares, whether it's Drupal or WordPress or whatnot. So a client may ask, we've got 9 plugins that need to get updated. Do we need to update them all? And for the most part, when you look at the plugin list, maybe the version numbers haven't changed, or it's the subversion. So there's 3 numbers, and the last one has changed, and that's not really a big deal. And generally, those go through without a problem. And for the most part, when you're dealing, especially with WordPress plugins, 9 times out of 10, there's never an issue. You click the buttons and everything's wonderful. I'm done with plugin updates in 15, 20 minutes. Then 10 minutes for a backup before, 10 minutes for a backup after, and so forth. We're at 30. Now we're at 30 minutes. So you
guys rewatch that. If you have WordPress, you might figure out some time slots.
So the problem is that if you don't allocate for the what-if scenario, then you are screwed. Now, earlier this week, or actually last month, the end of last month, we were updating a WooCommerce website. We put it onto our development server because we knew it was a major update. So that way then the end users never see a problem on the website. And when we clicked update, it was a big
one.
Big problem. It took about an hour and a half to resolve that part, and then there were other little parts that in there, and before you know it, I'm 4 hours in to something that if I had been on the phone with the person and said, it shouldn't take me more than 15 minutes to get done, having not looked at the situation. So
I think at the end of the day, to circle all the way back around, if you do have the need to want to open a business with your spouse, right? I think it doesn't have to be hard. Try not to walk into it looking for a conflict and looking for it to be hard. Determine what the roles are and honor and respect each other in the roles, but then also be super wicked fucking supportive in those roles. So Conor loves analytics and data, and it's just not my thing, right? I can make things pretty and I can help businesses grow 3 to 4 times within a 90-day time frame. I can provide awesome coaching. I can do all these different strategies, but I still listen to Conor a lot when he does tell me the analytics and the research, because believe it or not, it blends in and it also supports him. So if you get stuck somewhere in the research and he's in the weeds, then I know what to do and how to shift to be able to pull him back out. Same exact thing for me. Sometimes when I'm doing a design concept, I could be 4 hours into it and Conor's like, hey, what are you doing? It normally takes you 20, 30 minutes to tap in and get that. What are you doing? You're trying to make it perfect, if that makes sense. So holding each other accountable.
And 2 things on that. I mean, if you're working and you should be getting something done in 30 minutes or 45 minutes, there's a good chance that if it's taking longer than that, that you've been at work too long. So you get that burnout. We do 6, 8, 9 hours in a day. Well, some days it's 4 and 5 hours. Other days it's that 9-hour range.
We experienced that a couple of weeks ago. We were working on a project and we were just super tired. We were tired. We had huge volume and we were working really, really awesome and everything was great. And then we got into this project and it took us twice as long to get it done. And unfortunately, even with tracking it, we still have to hold ourselves accountable too, right? We didn't go and check the time of how long it took until we were 3/4 way through the project. And then we're like, oh shit. So that's the key hint is draw a line in the sand and move forward. How can you pivot and how can you shift? How can you find things to make how can you find a way to make it faster, if that makes sense, without cutting corners? So cutting corners, I'm telling you, I know a lot of people that are doing it right now and they're trying to get rich quick and they're trying to cut corners and it backfires all the time. So try not to make it to where you're cutting corners too much, because then you'll take away the essence of what you're offering value-wise. And I'm here to tell you, prospects and clients will feel it. They'll feel it when you start cutting corners, or they'll start to feel hey, before it was all lovey-dovey and you were super into me and now you're you don't even want to be involved.
Well, from that, if you're cutting corners, you better be cutting your bill rate too.
Yeah, that's
because
true.
I don't pay for the top quality work. If I'm paying for top quality work, I want 100% of the attention.
Yeah, for sure.
If you're doing half-ass work on it, I'm paying you half-ass pay, or I'm not hiring you altogether. So
and it's interesting for our industry specifically. I'll say for the SEO and I'll say for the web design, I'll call them out. There's a lot of people that are doing freelance work or there's big agencies all through the US, including in Omaha, that outsource to other people that do the work, but yet they put their label on it and say they do it themselves. Like, we just got a prospect call a couple weeks ago where the guy was wanting us to perform the work for his big giant agency. And I'm like, you know what, that's just not our jam. We're not into it. And I guess however I presented myself, he wanted to work with us even more. And I'm like, look, dude, like, it's just is not how our business model is. We've been there, we've done that, we tried that. And the reason why we don't do work for other agencies specifically, or perform outsourcing for other agencies, we want to have connection with the client. Right? So like, if we need a shift or we need a pivot, or there's a problem, or we're trying to basically tackle this strategy, we want direct contact. We always recommend direct contact with the owner, the president, whoever the top person is, as well as whoever the key contact is, right? So like, that's something that we do a little bit different. Other people are cool with setting a meeting with the person that just writes the checks, or the marketing person. But if that person ever leaves the business, and we don't have the intro connection to the owner or the president of the company, at that point, you're pretty much putting your business on the line of, you might walk into a conference room and somebody say, I don't see the value of paying you, our contract's done, right? We see it happen all the time. And another thing we talked about in previous videos is, if you are in a business like ours, or in a business in general, make sure that you don't just go after one big giant egg. Right? So like, we see this happen again. Like, people will have like a trades business, and they'll get a big contract with a big company, and they might get a contract for a year, and they're like, oh, I can just sit back and relax and enjoy. Actually, we watched a business almost go under for this. Sit back, relax, and enjoy, and they're loving life. And then all of a sudden that contract ends, and they're scurrying, trying to get business coming in. So
I've seen 3 businesses of friends that have gone under. Everything from a programmer where they skirted around and hired the employee directly rather than hiring the company, and as a result, that company suffered. And I've seen it even from cleaning companies inside of apartment complexes. So an apartment complex, you get that big job, and that's awesome, and you're locked in, and then your employee does a shit job, and that apartment complex fires you because that employee didn't show up or didn't do the work. And now you've lost that.
And a lot of times they don't even know. Like, a lot of times they're not even in connection with, we had that situation happen where we were contracting someone, and they said that they were on premises, and we checked the security, and they weren't. And then so it was a matter of a debacle, and then they told us we were lying, and cut cords. That's a whole other drama. But
another thing. So we'll move forward.
On.
But
okay.
There was something else with regards to the whole
marriage
thing.
Marriage.
I know. I had something else. No, I don't want that.
Sorry, I was petting him.
There you go.
I don't get to pet him very often.
Let's go ahead.
It's because I was on camera. You let me do it.
All right,
I got away with it.
Look at that time.
I know. Okay, so another thing that I want to touch base on is the do's and don'ts in business, right? So
I know what I wanted. Sorry, going all the way back. Freelancers. Kim had mentioned, that freelancers do blah, blah, blah. And I just want to put on the record that we're not knocking freelancers in any way.
No.
So freelancing is good. You can do multiple jobs and so forth. What Kim was actually talking about from the freelancer end of things is that if a client contacts you to do a website design, and you're good at doing content writing.
Right.
You can tell the client, yes, well, I've got contacts and we can get that done. And you can be the manager in the middle. You can be the coordinator, the paper pusher, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But taking credit for somebody else's work, that's where we have our own personal issues with that. So, we work with different logo designers and stuff like that. And when a client contacts us and says, can you do a logo? No, we can't, but we have contacts that will. And this is the person. We put them in direct contact with the other people. Yeah. And it's up to the client at that point. Can you guys just handle it? Yeah, no problem. We'll get it taken care of.
We have a lot of people that come back, like, we'll put them in direct contact, but sometimes they just want us to organize everything for them. They want us to be their assistants, so we do that.
So I just wanted to clarify that.
We love freelancers. We love everybody. We love everybody. We just have like certain aspects that really drive us crazy, because what happens is a lot of businesses don't know, right? So they don't know specific people are outsourcing to other people who are outsourcing to other people. And at one point we were in contact with the agency. They had 8 people that were in control of this web design that they were outsourcing to. And then they wondered why it was a clusterfuck, right?
Right. It's when you then go to make an edit and then everything just goes to shit.
But it also, like, the reason why I'm bringing it up is because it's not the agencies and the freelancers that are hurting. It's the business owners on the other side of the table that are trying to get into contact with somebody or get something clarified, or they asked for A and then they got a zebra instead, right? So it's like, it's us having people come to us and say, hey, this happened, and then us knowing on our own that it happens. We don't necessarily say specific companies. That's enough on that subject, but
take ownership.
So a couple things that I have, one of my pet peeves, and it's been coming up a lot lately, and I actually grit my teeth when people say this. It like drives me crazy. If you hire somebody to do your marketing, don't fucking take a full step back from your business. Right? So like when you hire somebody for your marketing, whether they're doing social media, content creation, SEO, pay-per-click, TV, radio, whatever else, don't just sign the check and then step away and hope that everything's going to work out. You need to have some form of engagement in your business, because if you have somebody that just graduated out of college that has no industry experience at all doing your social media, and they don't have a direct line to you to get feedback on verbiage or what happens in your industry or scenario, or even if the person's not willing to invest the time to learn about your industry, you probably need to reevaluate what you're doing, right? I see it happen all the time where people are like, oh, I hired so-and-so for social media. And we're like, okay, so how's it going? What's it going on? And they're like, don't know, I don't know. Or they'll go look. We had one person go and they went and looked on their Facebook as we were in a meeting with them, and they were like, what the is this posted on my business social media page? Like, they didn't even know what the person was posting, right?
Completely unrelated.
But yet they're actually hiring them, they're paying them to do this stuff, and it's crap. So like the thing is, and I know it's automatically going to go into, I'm super busy, I've got so much shit going on, I've got da-da-da-da-da-da. But honestly, if you're investing in something, you need to be engaged with whatever you're investing with. Now, it doesn't have to be a 2-hour meeting every single month, but you need to have a pulse point. So if you're outsourcing for somebody to create content for you, and they're just going and spinning articles left and right, and they don't know about you and what you're doing, you actually can get like a form of trouble as a freelancer. So I'm talking to freelancers now. But from a business owner perspective, any service that you're investing in, you have to know something of the surface level, a little bit in further in the level. It's just a pet peeve that like really rubs me wrong, because here's what happens is, if the business owner, if they mentally check out and they don't get what they felt like they were going to get, they're immediately going to bitch and complain about the person that did the work. But at the end of the day, was it the person that did the work? Was it their issue, or was it the business owner's issue, or was it a 50-50% blend of both of them? One, the person that's doing the service should demand and require the business owner to at least have a meeting, however long, so you can learn about the industry, as well as the business owner should want to know, hey, I'm writing you, 3-4 digit checks every single month. I want to know what's going on.
And taking that even outside of the online world. So years ago, I worked for a company, and the owner of the company he spent more time worrying about his golf game and his house in Mexico, whatever it was, and all the vacations that he was doing and so forth. Now, the business was making a ton of money, and that's awesome. That's what he wanted it to do.
Yep.
And he had a ton of staff.
Hey, thanks for joining, guys.
He had a ton of staff going on, and that was all great. But he rarely, if ever, checked in to find out, how are things actually going? Are we making the sales? How is the phones ringing? At the end of the day, what ended up happening, he ended up getting replaced, and somebody else had come in, and there was 9 managers that was taking care of stuff, and he fired everybody except for 3, and they did all the work. He didn't know. It didn't dawn on him to even check on that. So even though we're mentioning the social media end of things, it's in any business. If you're a coffee shop owner and you walk in, the first thing you do is you ask, so how's sales? Or how was business this week? Or any complaints or whatnot. So any of those situations, you need to be engaged of some form if you're going to run the business and actually care. Now, if you don't want to care about the business, hey, that's
the thing is, like, whether it's marketing or just consulting or general, you can you can get away with being half-assed, right? Like you can find a way to get away. Like I see so many people be like, oh, I'll just go sign up for a social media account because everybody says you're supposed to have a social media account, and they'll just half-ass it, right? Like I'm even guilty of half-assing our social media because like we have a certain blend and strategy of how we get our business, right? But the point is like you can half-ass it left and right, or you can take it the next level and step forward and be like, hey, like I want to have an active role in this business, in these things that I'm paying for. And then that way, if it's not working, you can either nip it in the ass right away, or you can adjust and shift. And here's the cool part. When it comes to marketing, if you are engaged and you shift and pivot, you can actually get ahead of the competition a specific way because they weren't paying attention, or they were paying attention to all the noise of and copying what everybody else was doing, but yet they didn't actually invest to learn about their own business and figure out like a niched area, if that makes any sense at all. So yeah, it's just like one of the pet peeves for me that like drives me crazy. And then I'm like, well, that probably would offer some value for someone.
Yep.
So I have a question for you. I have gotten this a lot.
About food? Am I hungry?
He's
yes,
hungry.
I am.
So I get this question a lot. So somebody's looking to start a blog.
Okay.
Okay. And they don't know what to write about. They don't know how to start. What would you recommend?
Top 10 questions. So really just ask a basically, if you want to write a blog, frequently ask questions.
Yeah.
It's probably the easiest thing. So if you're a gun shop owner.
Guns is an interesting situation.
I know, isn't it?
Like that's it. Like gun shops and guns have certain regulations. I'm interested in this answer.
They have a lot of stuff. And really right there, that is the perfect thing to write about.
Right.
So what is the process of getting a CCW in Nebraska? You know, can I use any particular weapon if I'm going to do that?
Yeah.
Do I have to register with the sheriff's office? How often do I have to renew it?
Right.
What's the cost? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I can give you a 900-word article, kick that out in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So if you're first starting writing a blog, you want to use all those basic questions.
Right.
If you're in the real estate world, you know, what do I need before I meet with you?
Right.
So if I want to go meet our buddies across the way and say, hey, I'm looking to buy a house, the first thing he's going to come back with me is, okay, what's your budget? Fuck, I didn't even think about that.
Right.
You know, and we see a lot of that the people actually do not know what their budget is.
Right.
But the next thing he's going to ask is, all right, what have you been appraised for?
Right.
You know, so knowing that that's a step that you need to do.
Yeah.
Having all that information inside of a blog, I can now get all that, bring that with me to the meeting with the real estate person and say, find me a house. And they'll go find me a house. Not in Omaha, because there's only 2,500 houses available in Omaha. Really, really awesome real estate market right now. But can you tell I was doing some research on real estate?
So the thing also is like, so frequently asked questions would be a good one to start
definitely.
with. I am a huge fan of writing content with, I don't know how to say this nicely.
Just say it.
So I take the people that I know my clientele do not want to work with at all, and I write the reverse of that content.
Sure.
So if you bear with me, so what I do is like if they have an ideal client, right, I'm going to put them off to the right. But if they have
the right is off the
screen. Off the screen.
There you go.
But if they have like this persona of a person that just is a pain in the ass, right? When I write, I keep that person in my mind, but I write the complete opposite to get the ideal client. And what happens whenever I do that is this pain in the ass realizes really, really quickly that they're unqualified. Does that make sense?
And that's a big, you know, especially from
like
the
tire
marketing.
kickers or people that are just like they're looking to waste, they're looking to get shit for free and they're not going to invest. I always keep those in mind and then find out who is your cream of your crop clientele and then connect the two dots. I also look at frequently asked questions is a great thing to start with a blog, mainly because you can go into a lot of value and knowledge. You just have to make sure you pull yourself up to where anybody can understand it. Right? So like we always like use the example of like anywhere between 8 years old to 12th grade, whatever grade that is, they need to be able to understand what you're talking about.
The Fleischman Scale, which is actually the reading level as to how to comprehend the content on a page. Now there's searches online. You can go do a search for the Fleischman Scale and it'll actually scan your blog for you or scan your Word document and tell you at what reading level comprehension that is at. The ideal number to be at is an 8th or a 9th grade. That generally covers the vast majority of everybody out there. A college grad is still going to be able to read that and understand it.
Because you could always write in another article at more advanced level, or you could always do a call to action at the bottom of the article for advanced questions to reach out to you too, right?
When I'm writing some of my articles, I write a lot of technical articles and I'm dealing with the nitty-gritty of how things are working. Well, that article is not for everybody. There's 2 people I have in specific mind that I want them to read it.
Thanks for joining, guys.
And when they read it, they're going to pick up the phone and call me and hire me to do it. And that's return on investment and so forth. But I'm not writing the article for everybody. I'm writing it for a specific person to call me.
Now, if you're in a service industry, one of my favorite things to do is momentarily forget what you do for a living. And imagine that you are going to visit yourself for the very first time. And imagine that you're going to visit yourself for the very first time with anxiety. Usually you can get 3 or 4 really good articles of what to expect, what's the procedures, how do you go about A, B, and C, how do you, like if you're service-based, what's the billing, when can you expect to receive a bill, how are you going to feel after you get a massage? Like there's multiple different things that you can do because believe it or not, some people are built where they want to research before they go. The other thing too is when we have people that want us to write content, the reason why at the very beginning I talked about as a business owner, don't check out of your business. We have to learn the personality and the persona of the business owner so our writing matches their voice, right? Because like you can have anybody write an article for you, but they're not going to get the jive of, is this person authentic? Am I going to be able to jive with this person? We had one client that asked us to review content and their content was too corporate. Uh-oh, you moved.
Yeah.
It was too corporate. It was way too corporate for the style of clientele that they got. Just bear with us, guys. It's fuzzy, but you can still hear us. So with content creation and the creation of a blog, try not to make it super complicated, but also don't produce shit. Like that's a pet peeve of mine.
Yes, fun content, weak content, whatever.
You want to know what my favorite place to find new content is? Do you remember this at the very beginning? No, did you just say the toilet?
Yeah, the doors on the toilet.
No, I love finding magazines, and I love flipping through magazines, and I won't steal the whole article. That's the whole thing, is don't steal, right? Don't, whatever you call that, plagiarize. But like, I know, right? But like, I'll come across an article and be like, man, that's really cool. And then how would I enhance that? How would I adapt that? How would I change that?
You know, you're reading an article about vacation travel to something, and then how can you spin that to be about real estate? Take your ideas and reuse them in different areas. But yeah,
absolutely.
The other nice thing with the frequently asked questions and your blogs that are first starting out, the first thing I would advise people to do is write what's called evergreen content.
Right.
And it's content, basically what that is, it's content that doesn't go out of style.
Right.
So you can read that a year from now, 3 years from now, and it still carries as much value and as much weight as what it did when you wrote it.
And that's where a lot of the frequently asked questions would come into place.
Definitely.
Or industry specific.
As you start moving forward in your blog, sure, write some current stuff, some stuff that's actually happening in the news. Yeah. But, you know, if you're writing about, let's use Trump, just because I haven't talked about Trump yet. So
we got away from the politics for so long. Episode 7, he mentioned a politic.
So if you're writing today about Trump's visit to North Korea, and you're doing an article on that, your own political spins and whatever else, that has value for the time that it is. But 2-3 weeks from now, that's not going to be top current event, and you've got to be writing about something else. So, you want me to write about Paris Hilton and her plastic surgery?
No, it's good.
No? Okay.
No, the thing that flashed in my head is make sure if you decide to have a blog and write content, make sure it's relevant to your business. At no point should you, unless you're in a business for politicians or that whole arena, you should not be writing about that. Like we
the
actually,
gun store will thank President Trump, and then the real estate
can you guys
market.
feel my skin crawling right
The
now?
real
I'm
estate
like,
market
oh my
can
God.
take, for all different things.
Okay.
Anyway,
So
we'll move away
background,
from that part. But
So the point is with content, if you're going to start a blog, make sure that you offer value, right? Make sure that you give them some form of what do they do next. Don't just write an article and then drop off, right? Like people love to have little gingerbread crumbs and figure out where's the finish line. So make sure that you include that. We're always huge fans of putting the phone number inside the bottom of the ending of the article, just because people want to just be able to click and call if they decide to convert, and then they don't have to go find another page. So that's a huge thing.
SEO golden nugget, since you're this far into the video, make that closing an H4 tag, and it'll carry a lot more weight with Google. So
the other thing too, just real quick, is when you start to create content, carry a notebook around with you, and every time somebody asks you a question, every question, and you give the answer, write down the question and the answer you give. Because here's what's going to happen is you might get the same question 10 times, but it's asked differently every time. And guess what you're going to do? As you learn your industry, you're going to learn different ways to give the answer, because naturally we're not scripted people. We won't give the same version every single time. So believe it or not, somebody might type in a question one way, but then somebody else might type in a question completely different, but they're asking the exact same question. So I'm a huge fan of carry around a notebook, write the stuff down. You don't have to produce the content today, but at least have a place for it. So like if you are all lit up and like, hey, my creative muse has come to me, what am I going to write about? Boom, you just knock it out.
And if you're a client looking to hire somebody, and that person gives you an explanation or an answer to whatever the question was, ask them to explain it again in a different way.
Yes.
Because that will start to determine how knowledgeable they are about that particular subject.
Yeah. Do you want to know one of my favorite things? I like asking people questions about my business that have no clue about what I do. That's who I love to tap into. Main reason why, because they're like, I was like, do you know what SEO is? And they're like, no, what is it? And I explain it. And then I have them repeat back to me what I just explained. Kind of similar to what you said. Repeat it back to me the way I said it. And then I'll either be like, yeah, that's it, or no, it's not. And then I'll write from that voice of that person that had no clue what SEO was. Getting
information from just everyday people, I guess.
Everyday people.
Well, people that are not within your circle directly. That's going to help getting your brand in front of different people for different things. So you're singing through me off. I'm all done.
No, it's cool. By singing through you off.
Fuck it.
Hey, okay, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up today's episode. It is episode number 7. Hopefully you made it to the end. Great nuggets inside here. If you find any value, go ahead and put some notes down here below. Susan, great to see you. Now. Or is it Susie? Is it Suzanne or Susan?
That's Susan Geller.
Susan.
That's from like way
in
early.
Carolina.
But
Carolina, are you still here?
No.
Casey, Maureen. Aw, you're my fan. She's your fan too, but I like her more. You can't have her. She's mine. She's my precious. She's my precious. She watches all the videos.
All right, so
okay, guys. So we're gonna enjoy our weekend. We hope that you guys enjoy your weekend as well. If you have any questions or you want some tips, strategies, keep the emails, keep the texts flowing. We'll see what we can tackle on next week's episode number 8. Yeah. Okay, have a great weekend.
Very good.
Yeah, we'll talk soon.
Bye, guys.
Thanks. Bye. At the end, END.
END.